is that normal?
It would be more normal not on camera. Mm-hmm. You know, we've seen our fair share of fights, you know, to the side of the cloakroom or this or that. I think that this is more of a recent phenomenon, but it is absolutely and totally justified.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, no, look, I think that there was this culture in Congress, even 8 years ago, 6 years ago, of civility that just the times don't warrant. Not in the face of trillion-dollar cuts to healthcare, not in the face of veterans getting fired, not in the face of Donald Trump just today saying that he's going to arrest President Obama. What, that he's supposed to say, thank you, sir? You know, thank you for your service. No, I think this is totally justified, and it speaks to the times and the intensity of the times and the stakes of today.
Rick, do you agree?
I think Max has got a point, Katie. This is a Congress that is now so profoundly divided, not ideologically, but culturally, that we are fighting between one group of people who want to be the enablers of an authoritarian leader and one group of people who may not always do it right, but they're trying to navigate how do you keep a democracy sort of taped together in the face of that. The Republican caucus will do whatever Donald Trump wants at any given moment. We've seen that over and over again, including right now defending a cover-up of pedophilia, which is an astounding, jump to where they are, in this country right now. They've inverted themselves completely. As Elaine was pointing out earlier, this used to be the center of their identity. We're going to protect the children. Well, now they're going to protect Donald Trump and other billionaires that Donald Trump is like in whatever this Epstein material is. And that has led to, I think, some of the most pointed tensions in the House. The Senate's a little more civilized still, but the world's greatest deliberative body right now looks an awful lot more like, world wrestling than it does a legislative branch.
I want to, by the way, give a shout out to Carl Hulse at the New York Times for helping us have this conversation. It was a great article about what it's been like in Congress right now, and it has not been pretty. Elaine, what about what Rick just mentioned there and the question he had? How do you keep a Congress like this taped together? Not welded together, obviously, but taped together. It looks like with Scotch tape right now.
Well, one simple thing that probably has something to do with it, which is they've had a lot of all-nighters recently. Okay, they've stayed up late many nights, and as you may know, the guys and the gals in this Congress are not exactly spring chickens. Okay, so you've had a lot of older people staying up all night long, having to sleep on their sofas, etc. Yeah, tempers are going to be frayed. But secondly, you've had since the beginning of the campaign, before Trump even was elected, you've had a collapse in bipartisan discussion. The biggest example of that was Democrats and Republicans actually came together on a pretty good bipartisan immigration bill, one that the Democrats didn't like and one that the Republicans didn't like, but they actually came together on it. And what happened? Donald Trump, from the campaign trail, said to them, stop, don't pass this thing. I want to use this as a campaign Trump, I'm going to use this as a campaign issue, and if you take it away and you settle it, then I can't use it. And so we've seen a situation where policy doesn't matter. What matters is whatever Donald Trump wants, and the Democrats are just, they're saying no, 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 no. What else can they do?
There's so little trust in Congress right now, Rick, because of what we've been witnessing. And I know Max was saying that it's more common not in the committee rooms, not on camera. Right. You'd get it, in the cloakroom and whatnot. But still, I mean, their ability to get work done for the American people, the confidence in that has diminished dramatically over the years. What do you do when you have an American public that just looks at Congress, shrugs their shoulders, and expects almost nothing of them?
I think, Katie, this is one of the big abrogations of the obligation that Congress has to sometimes defy their president, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, to sometimes represent their constituents, not just the national party to which they are members. MAGA doesn't really care about individual representation for their constituents. They believe that their number 1, 2, 3, and 10 goal is to please Donald Trump. And a lot of Democrats feel like they are in a box where they look over their left shoulders. They feel like they've got to run a national sort of message all the time that is in compliance with a sort of it's not like MAGA, but it's a cultural set of demands. And all these parties now, they stop thinking of themselves as representatives of the 1st District of Florida or the 5th District of California or the 11th District of New York. They look at themselves now as part of a national political bloc. And I think that's really gotten away from the Constitution. You know, as a conservative, I want people to follow their constitutionally obligated roles. And one of those roles in Congress is to represent the people that you are elected to be there for in Washington. We don't see that at all right now in D.C. And I think that's where a lot of the public dismay with Congress in both parties has come.
By the way, in case anyone's been wondering, is this the worst it's ever been? Well, it's not. There's a great book called The Fields of Blood, and my great producer reminded me of it because I've talked about it so much during our meetings. It's about violence in Congress in the lead up to the Civil War. It's like the first 60 years between 1800 and 1860, and it was really, really ugly. I mean, you had congressmen carrying pistols and Bowie knives. They were fighting on the floor. They were spitting on the floor. Some constituents at one point in the 1850s actually sent their congressmen guns.
Sure.
So it made me feel better reading it because I thought, okay, it has been worse.
Right.
It can still get worse, which means that we're not maybe we're not knocking on another Civil War's door quite yet.
Well, no one's getting caned, as famously occurred on the Senate floor.
By the way, that wasn't even the ugliest thing that happened.
Right.
It's the most famous thing, but it was ugly for about 60 years.
Yeah, so what certainly did happen less than a half decade ago is the sitting president of the United States incited an armed insurrection. Members of Congress fled for their lives, and then Republicans still stood up and defended that president. And that was very much a turning point here because despite the fact that these individuals had their lives threatened and their colleagues' lives threatened, they still put politics ahead.
Why do you think that is? Why are we unable to break free of this?
Look, there's a ton of incentives aligned with it. Being in elected office is great, and they want to stay in elected office.
Great? Why is it so great?
Look, now in retrospect, it doesn't seem that much fun. I'm having more fun now, but like you get my point, though. I mean, there's a ton of elements of being in an elected office, whether it's the adulation, whether it's meeting people, whether it's having your voice matter, you know, the power. I can understand why people would do things that are necessary. What I can't understand is why that doesn't have a breaking point. How they can still look themselves in the mirror after January 6th and still think that their life has purpose and they actually have ethics. But that was certainly a turning point. But we are living in this very weird world right now where at the same hand, last week, there was pretty monumental crypto legislation passed in a very bipartisan way in the House. So there's still some bipartisan activity. But what you're seeing in the end is every single time that a camera is on, people are realizing that that is a moment to express their rightful outrage at what is going on. And every Democrat that's doing that is exactly in the right.